So, let me tell you a story about a guy I once knew. This guy suffered from depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and he self-medicated with alcohol and other substances for over 20 years of his life. After a week-long drug binge, his roommate came home and found him overdosed on the ground. This wasn't the first time that this had happened. It was a common occurrence. He didn't want to live like this anymore, but he just couldn't stop. He just didn't want to have to suffer. Not only did he self-medicate with different substances like alcohol and different drugs, he also medicated with food, sex, even scratch-off tickets. At one point, his eating and alcohol consumption got so out of control that he weighed almost 300 pounds. I couldn't stand this guy. I couldn't even look at him sometimes. But the real truth is, I felt really sorry for this guy. My name is Charles Patti, and psychedelic medicine saved my life. And that guy that I was talking about, that guy is me. So if it wasn't for psychedelic medicines, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you right now. Along with psychedelic therapy, I started to exercise. I started to eat healthier. I started practicing breath work and meditation. And with all these different healing modalities, it changed me into a completely different person than I once was. So what is ketamine? Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic. It's not classified as a hallucinogen. Hallucinogens actually work on the serotonin receptors in the brain, while ketamine works on the NMDA receptors. That all being said, ketamine is giving people profound psychedelic healing experiences. Sometimes people say that they meet God. Sometimes people will go out into the cosmos and meditate. Sometimes people will go back and revisit a past traumatic experience that they've had and watch it from a third-party perspective where there's no real feeling or emotion attached to it. When people get into a disassociated state, it takes the blocks down that are holding these past traumas back, and it allows them to process, release them, and let them go so they can move on in their healing journey. So when people think about ketamine, some people say, isn't that a horse tranquilizer? Or isn't that a club drug called Special K? Or isn't ketamine dangerous and addictive? Well, the truth of the matter is that ketamine is so safe that yes, they do use it on animals. And that just like any other substance that can be abused or misused, it was used as a club drug. And is ketamine dangerous or addictive? Ketamine's only dangerous or addictive if people are using it in a recreational sense, not for the therapeutic value like they're doing at treatment facilities. So here are some things that you might not know about ketamine. Ketamine has an incredibly strong safety profile. It's actually the #1 choice for pediatric sedation. When you go to a treatment facility, ketamine's usually around a 2-hour medically supervised treatment. And another thing is that ketamine's actually been FDA approved for medical use since 1970. So here's some pretty impressive things about ketamine. Ketamine actually rebuilds your neural pathways in your brain. If you look at the top picture on the left-hand side, this is a picture of a neural pathway that's been damaged from trauma. And when the neurons are traveling through this pathway, they actually start to bounce on the walls. which causes depression, anxiety, PTSD, and a string of other things. If you notice on the bottom, ketamine's going in and physiologically remapping and restructuring these neuropathways, sprouting new dendrites, causing new neuroplasticity or new neuroconnections in the brain. It's also helping the brain create more dopamine naturally. So we're helping people get off of antidepressants, benzodiazepines, antipsychotic medications, street drugs, alcohol, and more. Ketamine is an amazing substance to help treat addiction with. There's a company called Awaken Sciences in Canada, and they just did a study with AUD, or alcohol use disorder and ketamine treatments. Now, if somebody goes to a detox center, a 28-day stay in rehab, and then goes to a 12-step meeting for the rest of their life, there's actually only a 3 to 5% chance of long-term sobriety. With this study that they just did out of Canada, after 6 months, 86% of the participants hadn't had a relapse with alcohol. This is going to be huge for the recovery community. I know, because it helped me. So there was a study that they did, and they were talking about psychedelics tapping you into a higher state of consciousness. So they started monitoring brain activity under different psychedelic compounds. And if you notice, on the far left, when people were administered psilocybin, there was a little bit of extra brain activity. In the middle, LSD. And if you notice, there's a significantly larger amount of brain activity. Now on the far right, this is what a picture of a brain that's under the influence of ketamine looks like. This is lighting up almost 85% of the brain. It's lit up like a Christmas tree. So it is my belief that these medicines are definitely tapping people into a higher state of consciousness. So here I have a video that I'm going to show you, and it has a few testimonials about the benefits of ketamine and what it's done for people. For the majority of my life, we'll get there. No. I suffered from depression, anxiety, and PTSD, and I could never get myself to a place where I felt good at all.
Before I came here, I was suffering from fibromyalgia. But in addition to that, I'm a recovering alcoholic addict. I've been a part of a 12-step program since the year 2001.
My dad had died in 2018, November, so I kind of just went to a dark place for the next 3 years, I would say. I tried, antidepressants, SSRIs.
April 9th, 2020, I woke up paralyzed and numb from the neck down. I had had an autoimmune response to Lyme disease, and I stayed in the hospital for quite a while, and then inpatient physical and occupational therapy. I was very depressed. I'd always been depressed. I was determined to get better and had heard a lot about ketamine previously.
For years of being somebody with health issues and years of having Band-Aids, actually feeling something, improving. And I think that is, to me, the biggest selling point. Rarely, when it comes to medical stuff, do we actually feel it getting better.
No other medications that I was given throughout the course of my life helped me. I always ended up feeling worse, and then my chemical makeup in my brain was completely screwed up from whatever I was taking. But psychedelic medicines were completely different.
I had incredible fatigue, depression, anxiety. I found it difficult to be happy in sobriety, so I scheduled the ketamine treatments. and I loved them. And, I mean, immediately I could see that this was a key, a way to get in touch with trauma from my past. Growing up, I could tell in the first couple of ketamine treatments that I was being taken to a place during the treatment that was allowing me to somehow heal and mend these past traumas.
I mean, that was the surprising part for me, the big realization that, wow, there actually is something here.
Previously, came into the clinic, very welcoming staff. You know, I was kind of curious what a medical ketamine clinic was going to look and feel like, but definitely lived up to the expectations in terms of a very comfortable, welcoming environment. When I think about what my life was like prior to treatment and what it's like now, it's just a world of difference.
I've never come in here and felt at all anxious. Like it's like from the time I came in, you're just kind of taken care of. And
We have an extremely high success rate of getting people away from their pharmaceutical medications. And it's because we're getting to the root issues, like the root cause of why we're feeling depressed, why we have anxiety. Through the course of all of their treatments, pretty much every single person that's come to this facility has got the healing that they were looking for.
My life changed completely. It changed completely. You want to go share this with everybody. You want to go tell them that there is a way out. There's possibility now in every single breath I take.
Before I came into treatment, I definitely did have suicidal ideation, and I do have to say that the first treatment did flip that over right away.
At some point, my dexterity improved to the point where I can ride a skateboard, which is highly inadvisable for someone with my medley of conditions, but the reaction from my doctor and physical therapist sending them a video of me skateboarding was a very good day.
But I've had people just walk up to me and say, like, you've changed so much in the last, what's going on? Like, everybody thinks I'm dating somebody.
If you're struggling, if you feel hopeless and helpless, like nothing's ever gonna work for you or get you out of that dark place that you're in, these medicines, psychedelic medicines, and especially ketamine, are taking people out of that place. People that have been suffering for 10 to 20 years sometimes, that couldn't get themselves out of that place, they come in here and within 6 treatments, they're a completely unrecognizable version of the person that first walked in the door. You know, there is hope. These medicines saved my life, and they can help save yours too.
Get your behind over to My Self Wellness. You've got to go right now. I've seen the light, so can you.
And today I will be replacing Peter Harwich, that unfortunately cannot be with us today. So,
Okay, sorry about this. Here we go. Just to let you guys know, the guy in the pink shirt, we got off 9 different medications. And it's not letting me go to the next slide. Okay, beautiful. All right, so integration, okay? Integration is such an important part of psychedelic therapy. When I had some of my first profound psychedelic experiences years ago, I didn't have anybody to integrate my experiences with, and it left me feeling more alone than anything. This is the doctor at our facility. So this picture was actually taken after I had spoke with a woman whose husband was getting treatments. He's a military veteran. He'd been suffering for over 20 years from PTSD. No kinds of therapy or medication he was giving ever worked for him. And she asked me, she was like, do you really think that this is gonna help my husband? And, you know, I explained to her, I didn't get into this because I wanted to sell ketamine to people. I got into this because I wanted to make sure that nobody else had to feel the way that I used to feel, because there was no way for a human being to have to live. And after I got done with having that conversation with her, I went into our doctor's office and I had a total recall, like a flashback of how miserable and how depressed I was and how much anxiety I was. And it just hit me like this wrecking ball. And I knew that how important this work was and why I was really doing it. So, What's the key takeaway that I want everybody to get from this presentation today? That if you or if somebody that you know is suffering from depression, anxiety, PTSD, addiction issues, OCD, bipolar, and a string of other bipolar disorder and a string of other things, that there is hope. That there's an FDA-approved medication out there right now that you can legally go seek treatment and get psychedelic therapy for you or a loved one now. Here's my contact information if anybody wants to reach out to me. I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor now and see if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask. Thank you all. Thank you. Sir.
Is this something that after you complete treatment you stop using, or is it? I'm basically wondering if it's over the course of treatment, if you're eventually then not taking ketamine after.
So with like any kind of psychedelic therapy, there is no one size fits everybody. That being said, I personally haven't done a ketamine treatment in over 2.5 years. Okay? We do offer treatments for people that have gone through the course of the treatments if they want to come in for a touch-up. But the thing is that, you know, the ketamine's a catalyst. It's a tool. And what we've noticed is that people that, it gives you the opportunity to really grab the reins of your life and then start to meditate and start to make these healthy lifestyle changes, which are the real recipe for long-term success.